Mahomes clearly trusts him. I mean, heck,
Yeah.
They won a Super Bowl by throwing him the football on third down and ended up getting a pass interference call. You're not throwing to that guy in that situation if you don't trust him, But so I think it's a great pickup for the Chiefs. I didn't think it was happening. I was kind of in your camp of, well, if he can't play in New England, then he must be finished. Well, Turns out he's not.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank. If you're thinking about starting a business or know someone who is, check out Emprise Bank's SBA loans. It's always good to know your options, and they can be your partner in possible.
What is up, Chiefs Kingdom? Welcome into 21 questions here on KC Sports Network, presented by our friends at Braden's Hope for Childhood Cancer. Really love the work they do at Braden's Hope for childhood cancer. And they can't do it alone. Go check them out at bradenshope.org and join them in the fight against childhood cancer. Your support can bring hope to families and save lives. Visit bradenshope.org to learn more and get involved. Together, we can make a difference in the fight against childhood cancer. This week on 21 Questions, I am joined by Big B, Brian Hanley. Brian, how you doing?
I am doing well, my man. Thank you for asking, and thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Last year, obviously, if people are familiar with the KCSM programming, Big B and I had a show last year, Outside the Trenches with Nick Leckie. Nick hung it up. Nick hung up the cleats. So he hung up the cleats, then he hung up the microphone, is what happened. So Nick went into retirement, but I said, you know what? We got to get Big B on for 21 questions because we got a lot of league-wide questions in here too, Big B. I know that's our bread and butter. Even when Outside the Trenches, we talked league-wide stuff.
Right.
We got a lot of those, but we also got some Chiefs questions as we are rocking and rolling into week 6 already in the NFL season. Crazy to already think about that's this deep into it. Chiefs on a bye week. But I guess before we really dive into questions, what are your thoughts on the Chiefs? What are your thoughts on this year so far?
I mean, a lot of people always associate the Chiefs offense with how the team is going. I think the Chiefs are playing well. I know the offense isn't scoring 35, 42 points a game, but I think the Chiefs offense is doing just fine. They've had running back injuries, but the wide receiver injuries. I mean, it makes it tough, but I think they're doing okay. I think they're fine. The one thing about the Chiefs I heard this, somebody said it the other day. I'm not going to give them credit. I'm going to take credit for it, is that the Chiefs have a stigma over the rest of the league that when things get tight, the Chiefs know how to win and teams are afraid of them. Yeah. And that's true. When games get tight, the Chiefs know how to win. They've been there before. And the other teams get tight. They don't know, and they're afraid of the Chiefs. They're like, man, they're going to beat us. They're going to beat us. And then they do. So that's good for them.
It's one of those things, too. I've talked about it on a couple of podcasts this week of, I think a lot of fan bases from around the NFL, and Twitter's not a really great representation of all the fan base as a whole. You see the bad of legitimately every fan base on Twitter. That's just what you get to see. There's a lot of fan bases you see online when the Chiefs win a close game. At the end of it, they'll tweet out screenshots of like, oh, this should have been called, or this wasn't actually a pass interference, or they committed a pass interference here. And the difference between teams why people, I think that the refs help the Chiefs so much is the Chiefs are really good at taking advantage of the opportunities that they have. Like, there are a lot of teams that are given opportunities at the end of the games that don't necessarily convert on them, right?
Right.
Chiefs are just really good at converting and making you pay for your mistakes. That's the biggest thing, is that it can still be a penalty, right? The refs can still call a penalty. It can be blatant, clear as day. Like a D-back running through Xavier Worthy. You're going to get that called 99 times out of 100, right? Because there's going to be one time, like earlier in the game, it doesn't get called. But then you're going to have the people saying, oh, the refs are bailing out the Chiefs. So that's not necessarily true. The Chiefs still have to go down and score after that and everything like that.
Right.
But I do think that it's one of those things where I think you hit the nail on the head there. It's like the Chiefs just know how to close these games out. They've been in these close games for seemingly years, and it's probably the fact that they seem like they coast through the regular season that helps them do all that, and these games get a lot closer. But Patrick Mahomes too hasn't played his best ball either, and they're still 5-0 heading into the bye week. It's nuts.
Yeah, I mean, look, Mahomes, they compared his stats to Daniel Jones the other day, which was
disrespectful.
But if you just look at stats, they're comparable. But that lets you know what the Chiefs' entire football team is all about. When Patrick Mahomes can literally have stats like Daniel Jones and the Chiefs don't look anything like the New York Giants. So, look, the Chiefs are fine. They're going to be fine. It's kind of what you said. They seem to they get through the regular season, but so far they've gotten through the regular season and they haven't lost. So, and some people are going to downplay some of the teams that they played. Look, I think the Saints are pretty good. Yeah. I think the Falcons are pretty good. So, they've played some decent teams here. It'll get a little tougher. I think the Ravens are really good. So I think the Chiefs are just fine. It's just they're getting into the season. The bye comes a little early. Get some guys healthy. And a lot of times people think, oh, when you're getting healthy, it means, well, a guy that's got a knee injury or an ankle injury is coming back. Yeah, those guys probably aren't coming back anyway. It's, You know what? I've been playing, but my shoulder's been killing me. If I just had 5 days off, I'll be better. It's those type of injuries that help your team. It's just my arm, my elbow, my shoulder, my back. I'm still playing, but it's affecting me, and I can't be 100%. I get a little time off without a game or anything, and I feel better. It comes at a good time.
It's going to be huge, the bye week coming here. Then they have the Niners after the bye. That'll be a good game, a Super Bowl rematch that we'll get to see as well. But let's go ahead and dive into these questions. These questions coming from our Discord community. If you want to be a part of our Discord community, go subscribe to our Substack, kcsn.substack.com. You get premium film reviews, you get breaking news, you get analytics, all straight to your inbox every day. I'm pretty sure every weekday you get something right to your inbox there at kcsn.substack.com. That's $30 a year or $5 a month if you just want to run on the monthly sub. And you also get a link in your welcome email as an invite to the Discord. You can join the Discord after that. And then you can ask those questions there on the channels. We got all different kinds of channels. I like to hang out. Big B, we were talking about some college ball before we started recording. You and I both love college football. Yeah. I like to hang out in that channel. We're talking some NFL draft as well. Look, it's already starting to talk draft. Maddie Lane cannot stop talking about guys that you should be watching for the draft. It's week 6 of the season, and we're already talking drafts. We got, all kinds of channels there. Outdoors, beer recommendations, video games. I'm just scrolling through here. There's so much. Oh, there's a Taylor Swift channel in here, too. I must have missed that one. There's a Taylor Swift channel that you can go and look at here in the KCSN Discord. But these questions coming from the 21 Questions channel in the Discord. First, we're going to start out with this one, Big B, because I think this is interesting. I know that you are a Pittsburgh Steelers guy. You're a Steelers fan. Yeah. And on Monday night, a former Steeler had a pretty big game for the Kansas City Chiefs. This question from Not Complaining Until We Lose, probably a good motto, with how his health and his time in New England played out, does JuJu ever play for another team outside of Kansas City?
I would bet that he doesn't. Look, JuJu was able to make, first of all, everybody makes decent money, but he was able to capitalize on what he did with the Chiefs and got a good contract with New England. So he got paid some good money there. JuJu doesn't seem to be a guy that's going out being super extravagant. So he would take less. He took less. The last year in Pittsburgh, he took less to stay in Pittsburgh. So he's going to do the same. I feel like he's like, you know what? I'm comfortable in Kansas City. I know what I bring to the table. I know what they expect of me. I don't have to go out and break the bank. While he may want to, I don't know that his talent or health is going to command anything close to that anymore. But I do think he's a good, serviceable receiver that the Chiefs love. And I think he loves it there. He fits what they're trying to do. I don't think he goes anywhere. I just don't. I think he's a Chief for as long as he can play football, or as long as they want him anyway.
Right. I think so too, man. I was shocked when, I don't know if shocked is the right word. I didn't necessarily see the Chiefs adding JuJu back like when they happened this summer. I didn't really see that happening just because I thought, like, if New England's done with him, he's probably like done in the league. Is kind of what my thought was. And the Chiefs added him back. That was probably, I think we had talked about this on Only Weird Games. That was probably more an indictment on what the Chiefs thought they had with like Justin Ross in the bottom half of their roster. That was more of like, okay, let's raise the floor of this room a little bit. And if you would have told me in August, Big B, that JuJu Smith-Schuster would have 130 yards for this team in a Monday Night Football primetime game, I would have, I don't know what I would have done. And then you would have told me Kareem Hunt would have had 102 rushing yards. I would have said, all right, something's not right here. Something's going on. 102 yards, for the Saints, right? He's not playing for the Chiefs. And then, no, 102 for the Kansas City Chiefs. But it's like Patrick Mahomes realized mid-game, oh, yeah, I remember liking this guy during the Super Bowl. It's like he was like, I remember I trusted this guy. And this guy was a very reliable place for me to go. And what also is really nice for the Chiefs, New England's basically paying the man to play for them. That's the contract is still being paid out to JuJu a little bit here. I tried to look it up here real quick. He's getting league minimum right now for the Chiefs, but he signed a 3-year contract for $25 million, which had a $7.9 million signing bonus. It was $16 million of it guaranteed. And he's still getting that money.
$8 million this year from the Patriots.
I mean, that'll work.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, Tucker, I think JuJu, the last year he was with Kansas City, he led the team in catches. I don't think he led them in yards, but I think he led them in catches. So, and if it wasn't, it was real close to Kelsey. But, I mean, Mahomes clearly trusts him. I mean, heck, they won a Super Bowl by throwing him the football on third down and ended up getting a pass interference call. You're not throwing to that guy in that situation if you don't trust him, But so I think he's a great pickup for the Chiefs. I didn't think it was happening. I was kind of in your camp of, well, if he can't play in New England, then he must be finished. Well, Turns out he's not. Again, he's not going to be a 100-catch guy. But you don't need him to be a 100-catch guy. You just need him to be part of what you're doing. And the one thing about JuJu, I know he dropped that touchdown pass the other day. You can say it was a little behind him. NFL receivers catch that ball 85 out of 100 times. You just have to catch it. But JuJu doesn't drop passes. That's the thing. So he's what the Chiefs need, man. I thought it was outstanding. I know as a Steeler fan, I'm thinking, we could bring him back. We need him. We don't have a second guy, but that didn't pan out. I'm devastated, but it is what it is.
Yeah. Looking at the numbers here, Travis Kelce had 110 receptions that year, which is insane. JuJu had 78, which led all wide receivers. So he was the leading of all wide receivers. A lot of the times there too, when you look back at the Travis Kelce stats, like, Callie, his receptions and his yards numbers are insane. His touchdown numbers are not, like, very good. Like, when you compare them, he's, like, tied with Jason Witten right now, I think, in terms of, like, career touchdowns, which feels low when you're talking about Travis Kelce and, like, kind of, like, all the production that he's had. But, like, in terms of yards and receptions, he should be, I think he is the top of all. He just passed Tony Gonzalez for franchise receptions for the Chiefs, and he's pretty close for receiving yards if he hasn't passed it already for franchise leader, which is crazy to have two tight ends atop your franchise leading receiver. I mean, that might be more an indictment of the wide receivers the Chiefs have had in their history, but nevertheless, I'm glad to see Travis Kelce get back on the right track as well in that Monday Night Football game. It was a real turn back the clock game against the Saints. They really turned it all the way back with Kareem Hunt. I don't have this question here. I want to know your thoughts on Kareem Hunt. Are you surprised that, number one, are you surprised he's back with the Chiefs? And number two, are you surprised how well he's played?
I'm not surprised how well he's played because Kareem Hunt was always good. But the Chiefs' offensive line is really good. And when you're playing behind a line that's pretty good, especially the three interior guys, you got a chance. And that's what the Chiefs have. Now, you could say that he took a step back last year with Cleveland, but Cleveland's offensive line was ravaged with injuries, so they weren't able to run the ball a ton. Plus, he was splitting carries. At and I don't think he wanted to be there anymore, but it was an opportunity and he was there. But I don't know, Tucker. It's weird to think, well, he came back to Kansas City and after everything that happened, and I know they said, well, they vetted him, and I'm like, well, nothing changed, so everything that you got rid of him for is still there. It's just time has passed. Maybe people forgot. I don't know. Maybe people don't care about it. I don't know. To me, don't get me wrong. It was a big deal what happened, but if he's still in the league and the NFL is going to allow him to play, then why can't the Chiefs sign him back? That's my thoughts.
That means a lot of this stuff too. I think a lot of the things that happened in Kansas City were how he behaved, maybe prior and after after everything happened was part of the reason. Obviously, a very terrible thing that he did, but that doesn't make him a terrible person, right? He did a bad thing, but that does not make him a bad person. It's been 6-7 years now, right. So and he was also early 20s. Now he's very mature. I think he's matured a lot in terms of where he was in that regard.
He's missed out on a lot too, Tucker.
Yes.
He missed out on a ton of because I don't feel like he would have not still been a Kansas City Chief. I mean, maybe they don't pay him when it comes time to pay him. I don't know, but I feel like he's missed out on a lot. He's also missed out on a lot of money, so that'll humble you. It really will, because I would bet he's probably missed out on $25 million and some Super Bowl rings.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. The rings for sure. I mean, that can't be easy to watch. I think Kareem Hunt, that couldn't have been easy to watch, to know that your behavior impacted how that all unfolded for you. And then he seemed I think he seemed to mature, and I think everything is in the right direction. Glad to see him get a second chance in Kansas City, truthfully, just to kind of right a wrong. You always like to see those redemption, second chance type stories. And we know Andy Reid loves that as well, right? Andy Reid loves to give guys second chances in terms of all that. But let's keep it moving here on 21 questions. Hokie Chief, you mentioned this a little bit earlier about the Colin Saunders interception. Hokie Chief asked us, why can't interceptions be divided in half like sacks? Off the hands of a wide receiver, give half to the wide receiver and half to a quarterback, and in parentheses, or all to Kadarius.
I mean, I guess they could, but here's the thing. You give a guy credit for a batted pass, but you don't give it, for instance, if one guy bats it and another guy drops the ball or something like that, it's one batted pass. So you can't give a half of an interception because the guy that batted it didn't catch it. So I get the premise, but you got to complete the play, unfortunately.
Yeah, he also did mention you can give a half an interception to the defensive lineman who gets the tip at the line. But I agree with you as well. Where do you draw the line then?
Exactly. I mean, because then defensive lineman, let's just say you're really good at it and you deflect, 9 passes in a season, and you give them half for interceptions. Well, when it comes to the negotiating table, they're going to say, hey, man, I'm getting 4 interceptions a year too, on top of these sacks. So, you can't, I get it. Don't get me wrong. And I'm also not opposed to it, but I just don't think you can have that happen.
Yeah. You just gotta draw the line somewhere. And that all of these, you mentioned a good point about negotiating, all of these are going to turn into negotiating chips. Oh, yeah. Right. It's every stat is going to be used. At some point someone has brought up a PFF grade. An agent is his PFF, teams don't use those, right? But the PFF grade says he's pretty damn good. You better pay him. Everything is going to get turned into a bargaining chip in terms of all of these contract negotiations. That would certainly be one of them. All right. Maybe I think we should take a break here. When we get back, we got some fantasy questions, some questions from around the league, but we'll be right back right after this.
Shop Chiefs tickets and more with no fees. Plus, save big with code KCSN at ticketsforless.com, the official ticket provider of KC Sports Network.
With big wireless providers, what you see is never what you get. Somewhere between the store and your first month's bill, the price you thought you were paying magically skyrockets. With Mint Mobile, you'll never have to worry about gotchas ever again. When Mint Mobile says $15 a month when you purchase a 3-month plan, they mean it. Say bye-bye to your overpriced wireless plans, jaw-dropping monthly bills, and unexpected overages. Mint Mobile is here to rescue you with premium wireless plans starting at $15 a month. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Use your own phone in any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number along with your existing contacts with you. Ditch overpriced wireless with Mint Mobile's deal and get 3 months of premium wireless service for $15 a month. To get this new customer offer and your new 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/KCSN21. That's mintmobile.com/KCSN21. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/KCSN21. $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details. Back here on KC Sports Network, 21 questions presented by Braden's Hope for Childhood Cancer. First, I want to give a shout-out to Seamus, Simu7, who said, #we missed Big B in the Discord. So getting some shout-outs in there. He also asked us, you play fantasy football before I ask this question?
Yeah.
Okay, good. And you never know it these days. He has said, big dynasty guys or big redraft guys?
Redraft. Dynasty, I get it. I played it before, but I got out of the league. I didn't like it. Just redraft because, first of all, I feel like if drafting doesn't necessarily win you a league, but it can lose you one. And I want to put that in somebody's plate every single year. I want to make sure they feel that pressure every single year. That, like I said, you're never going to win your league by drafting, but you can absolutely lose it by drafting. So I feel like people should have that type of pressure.
I'm in a good split of redraft and dynasty leagues. I think I'm in 2 dynasty leagues and maybe 3 redraft, actually, is what it comes down to. So I got a good mix of both. I do love I was talking about this on that football show. I love the GM feeling of the dynasty. It is an all-rookie draft, right? Like this last year is an all-rookie draft. Can't remember who my quarterback was, but I was like, you know what? I need to make a change. It's a 2-quarterback league with the super flex. I said, I got to make a change. I got to play a quarterback this year. Made a big trade to get to the 2nd overall pick in our draft, and I took Jaden Daniels with the 2nd overall pick. Yeah, it worked out pretty well. And then pre-draft, like after I got the 2nd pick, I had the 2nd pick for a couple of months right after the season got on because I decided that's what I wanted to do. I was like, I should get a stack. So 10 minutes before the draft, I made a trade for Terry McLaurin. I don't know if anybody knew what I was doing, though, either. So I made a trade for Terry McLaurin, and then I draft right after that basically right after that trade happens, I draft Jaden Daniels, and they're like, oh, we see what you were doing. So that made me feel like Brett Veach, on draft day, or that movie sucks, by the way, Draft Day. You ever seen it?
I do. I actually like it. You don't like it?
I think the acting's really bad in it.
Now, don't get me wrong. I was just going to say the acting is very cheesy, but the premise of it, I like it. I thought it was okay.
So here's the thing for me. I say it's bad, but I enjoy bad movies, right? I don't think, so I don't know if there is, I think there's people say this, I don't know if there's such thing as a bad movie because you still enjoy a bad movie. You're making fun of it, right? Like you're making fun of it. You're like, this sucks, but it's funny because it's like, to me, Twilight is one of my favorite movies to watch, the first one, because it's so funny, because it's so bad. It is so bad, and I love to just like laugh at how cringy it is and just how poorly produced it is. And then, they got better, obviously, because they became popular, so then they got more production quality and everything. But the first one, such a bad production quality, and I love to watch it and just like make fun of it. And that's kind of the same thing with Draft Day. I always watch Draft Day, close to the draft season. And I just love to watch it to be like, why is this dude trading 3 first-round picks for a linebacker? What are we doing?
Yeah. That's the thing. I like movies, but sometimes when they're so unrealistic, it's like, And you're right. Nobody's doing that. Nobody's trading 3 first-round picks for a linebacker. That's just never, ever going to happen. I don't care how bad the GM is. Not going to happen.
I've seen people try to defend it and be like, well, he was like in the dirt, 3-4 outside linebackers. It does not matter.
It does.
He's a linebacker. He is a linebacker. Bad pick.
I could do that for Lawrence Taylor. So, no.
Bad pick. And then he trades all of his twos or what? I don't know. Wild movie. But yeah, you're right. Speaking of drafts, like you can put some pressure on some people in those redraft leagues. I do like that. I always like talking mess in the I don't know if you use like Sleeper or ESPN. ESPN's probably a big one. Yahoo. They always have like the draft chats. My favorite one is when somebody will pick like let's say like Kareem Hunt, right? You pick Kareem Hunt a little early, and I'm like, wow, that would have been a great pick in 2018. Like that's one of my favorite go-to barbs that people do.
That's hilarious.
Just making fun of how old these guys are. Okay. Hokie Chief. Again, another Hokie Chief question. Shout out Hokie Chief. What are the odds that Veach does nothing during the bye at the trade deadline?
I feel like the Chiefs will do something.
Yeah.
I feel like they're going to do something. I'm not saying that they can't win a Super Bowl with their current roster right now, because they can. But when have the Chiefs just settled and been satisfied with the status quo? They're not that type of team, and they shouldn't be. They don't have. I think that's what keeps them good, is that they keep trying to get better, constantly trying to get better. And I feel like they're going to do that this year. They're going to get better. I don't know exactly where you add something, but everybody can use help. Doesn't matter. So I feel like the Chiefs are going to be that team again to go add something.
I think so too. And we have a question here. Let me see if I can find it. About like if it's excluding wide receiver, what other positions would you be looking at addressing for the trade deadline, and how? That's from Lee 87 there. I don't like, obviously another pass rusher would be nice because you can never have too many pass rushers. Charles Omenihu's coming back on this team, which is almost like your trade deadline acquisition right at that position. Mm-hmm. So that helps a little bit there too. The Chiefs are pretty set at safety. I feel pretty okay about their cornerback situation, even though coming into it, you're like, who is actually going to be the second quarterback on this team? Jalen Watson's played pretty well this season. So like I'm not worried about that at all. So like defensively, like personnel wise, maybe another linebacker, because just with their depth at linebacker is not great. But like other than wide receiver, maybe running back on the offensive side of the ball would be the only one that you'd want to add. I mean, Pacheco's coming back in a few weeks, but there was an 8-week injury that he had a couple of weeks ago. So he's going to be back probably close to when Omenihu will be back. So like that's kind of a deadline acquisition. Their roster is pretty solid when it comes down to it. I do think wide receiver is the spot that you could really add something and become more dynamic, because, man, I don't know if we're ever going to see Hollywood Brown and Rashee Rice on the same field together. I think we got one play of it in Jacksonville, and that stinks, man, because like that offense, I'm just thinking about what this offense could have been, and kind of what it's turned into is a little disappointing, sadly.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it just stinks. It absolutely stinks. But I don't think there's any way that that's going to happen. So to get more dynamic on the wide receiver end, it's just a matter of where you're going to go and what are you willing to give up to do it. There's some guys that are going to be available out there. Obviously, the Devontae Adams is never going to happen. But there's other guys that are out there that the Chiefs could go get. They just got to be willing. And name guys. You know, there's some name guys out there that you can go get. But you got to be willing to give up something. And, you know, the Chiefs, I think they are. I think they're at that point. They're just like, you know, they're not going to give a first or a second round pick for somebody out there like that. But, you know, if it's a fourth or a fifth rounder, they're willing to roll the dice and do that to win. Because I always bring this comparison. A lot of people do the same thing. Who you get back? Are they going to be better this year and next year, better than what a fourth or a fifth round guy is? Most of the time, the answer is yes. And if it is, then you make the trade. So I think the Chiefs will do that.
They also have an extra third this year. They have Tennessee's third round pick as well. So it's going to be
that means an even better guy. But
yeah.
So
And a lot of the news coming out as we're recording this on Thursday is that Davante Adams isn't going to get a second round. Like the Raiders aren't going to get a second rounder for him.
Yeah, I mean, when teams don't or know that you want out, why am I going to give you a second round pick?
Right.
And Davante Adams is not going to play another down for the Raiders. That is not going to happen. So if you want a second round pick, well, great. I know you want that, but here's a fourth. Do you want it? Take it or leave it. Hey, that's just. Sorry, Raiders. It's just the Raiders being the Raiders again. They had their opportunity to get rid of him in the offseason, and they didn't. And here you are. So
the thing is really tough, too, is I think that Davante Adams was probably one of the big reasons that they hired Antonio Pierce. So, and he already didn't kind of want to be there because I don't know if you saw much of the receiver series. He looked pretty disgruntled during that whole series with being there. The way that they handled Derek Carr and they just did Derek Carr such a disservice, I think, in the way that they brought both of those two guys together and then split them up so unceremoniously and so disrespectful almost was probably very upsetting to Davante Adams. And I get it.
Davante, the thing about it is okay, you get rid of Derek Carr because you don't think that he's the future. He can still play, but he's not the future. But then you thought Jimmy Garoppolo somehow was the future? But then you didn't trade up. You didn't do enough to trade up to go draft a quarterback in this quarterback draft. So now you got Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell. What do you expect? I don't get it. I don't know what they're doing. It's the Raiders, though. It's the Raiders.
It's good for Chiefs fans that they're seemingly incompetent for a while. So, I mean, gosh, Chiefs, the division. There's no competition in the division for the Chiefs.
It's the division is bad. Look, Denver is the next best team, and Denver's not very good.
Right,
they're not very good. I've seen Denver firsthand not be able to move the ball on the Pittsburgh Steelers at all. They're just not very good. I know they've played better the last couple of weeks. I'll give them credit for that. They have. The Chargers are not very good. They've come in and they've basically, I know Herbert is hurt, but they basically told him, look, we're not going to use you to be Superman like you have before. I don't know that you want him to be Superman, but you need him to be doing more than what he's doing. I know that. I mean, trying to win football games and him throwing for 200 yards a game is not going to cut it. That's just not going to cut it. But then again, they took away all of his receivers, so there's that too. I just don't know. I don't know. Good for the Chiefs. Like I said, that division is a nightmare.
It is. Grayson Jaspers asked us, what is Big B's read on the Pickens scenario? Is he available, and is it contingent on them landing a different wide receiver?
First of all, I do a channel, Steelers Almighty. If you haven't checked it out, make sure you do. And we've been all over this thing. George Pickens hasn't matured not one bit since he got into the National Football League. And that's the problem. He played 59% of the snaps the other day when they played the Cowboys. Van Jefferson got more. Calvin Austin got more. And all Mike Tomlin gave you was, well, we're load managing them. So you're telling me that you have to load, and he compared it to Cam Hayward, that you have to load manage a 23-year-old wide receiver, and you're comparing that to a 35-year-old defensive lineman. That's Tomlin speak of him basically saying, yeah, I'm done with this guy, but I can't tell you that I'm done with this guy. And we know that he's loafing. And if you watched him run routes, he's been just 70% out there, jogging at routes. I get it as a wide receiver. I take that back. I don't get it, but I know wide receivers dog it on run plays. They do. But on pass plays, you're dogging it too? And when you're the primary target and you're dogging it, and just, I don't know. I think the Steelers, they never want to rebuild. I think this would be the perfect season to say, you know what? We're not going to win anything. Let's just rebuild and trade him away, get some draft picks, because he's not doing anything. It'd be one thing if he was catching 8 balls a week. We don't have that kind of offense, so just trade him away and start over. We'll see if they do that. I don't think they will, but Mike Tomlin's done with them. He's telling you that he's done with them without saying it.
And there were concerns about that with him coming out. I know that there were a lot of teams, and I think he even slipped a little bit in the draft because of his behavior and attitude. That was a big thing. I know that's a reason the Chiefs, he was on the board when the Chiefs picked Sky Moore. And the Chiefs were like, we'd rather have Sky Moore than George Pickens. Because I think Pickens came in on a top 30 visit. Like, he was in Kansas City, and that was a reason that they did not want to select him. So it's been an issue for him since he was at Georgia. And I really did think that Pittsburgh probably would be the best place for him to go, just because Mike Tomlin does really well with wide receivers that have attitude problems. But sometimes the attitude problem is too big. And I think that might be seen with George Pickens there. It's a shame because he's great talent. I really do think he's an incredible talent, but he just hasn't been able to have that translate to the field consistently. And
the problem with it is they tried to separate some of the issues. They traded Deontay Johnson, who was technically the best receiver on the team. Let's not kid ourselves. He didn't have the most talent, but he was the best route runner. He was the best receiver, but he had locker room issues, literally getting into a fight with Mika Fitzpatrick last year. And so they get rid of him thinking, okay, George, we got this guy out of here. Maybe it was him that was influencing you. If we get you by yourself, maybe you won't be as bad. And now it's worse because at least last year he wasn't dogging it on routes. Now he's dogging it on routes, and it's an absolute mess. It's just a mess.
That's tough. Casey from Casey wants to know what your favorite barbecue joint is currently.
Well, I live in Dallas.
Right.
So
I've had good barbecue in Dallas, I will say. There was a place I went to in Frisco that was actually pretty darn good.
Yeah, they do. They've got a couple. Hutchins is really good here.
Yep.
Hard 8 is really good here. But I tell everybody it's not Kansas City.
It's not.
It's not. And look, I was because I used to work next to Hayward's. It's not there anymore. I think, what is it? Q33? Is that the name?
Q39.
39. Yeah, that's what's there now. But I used to love Hayward's. Everybody likes Jack Stack. Well, I shouldn't say everybody. A lot of people like Jack Stack, but it's not called Oklahoma Joe's anymore. Is it just Joe's now?
Joe's Kansas City is what they call it, but it's just Joe's. Yeah.
That is by far my favorite. By far my favorite over anything and everything.
What is really impressive about Joe's is their consistency. And barbecue is not an easily consistent food to make. It is very hard to get the same thing out over and over and over, and they've done a really good job of it for a really long time to do that. A lot of those barbecue places do that, and a lot of the smaller ones. So I've tried to go to a little bit more of the smaller ones. Chef Jay is a very, very good one here at Big B if you make it to Kansas City. It's inside the Beast, the haunted house that they have here in Kansas City. Inside of it, they have a barbecue spot, Chef Jay. They do incredible stuff. I think they had a loaded baked potato sausage the other day. They do they do some pretty inventive stuff. They got bacon burn-ins, which are incredible. They do really good work. I've eaten at Meat Mitch several times. Meat Mitch is a very good one as well. Started as a competition barbecue place, then went to brick and mortar. Smoke and Magic, I've had that a couple times. They were at the airport, but they're mainly competition barbecue. There's a lot of good small place. Scott's Kitchen up north is good as well if you're looking for another small place. Smoke, I believe that's in Olathe, is a very good. It's SMOAK. There's a lot of good small places around Kansas City that I've been trying to hit up. Everyone knows the staples, right? The Gates, right. Your Arthur Bryant's, your Jag Stack, your Joe's, the Big Four. I'm trying to reach all the little small ones that are very good too. So anytime anyone comes to Kansas City, I'm like, if you haven't had Kansas City barbecue yet, you got to go to the Big Four, one of the Big Four, or all the Big Four if you want. But then once you've had those, then you can branch out a little bit more to the smaller guys.
Absolutely.
It's good stuff. Look, we could probably do a whole podcast about barbecue, truthfully. We could probably get those. So Casey, another question here said, if you could improve anything about the Arrowhead experience, what would it be?
Let's see. The last time I was there, the Chiefs beat the brakes off the Steelers in the playoff game, so that was fun. I mean, look, I know I'm not a Chiefs fan, but I've been to Arrowhead for several Chiefs games because I used to live there.
Right.
I don't think you improve anything unless you want to put a dome on it. And I'll be quite frank with you. If they ever put a dome anywhere in near Kansas City, I will be out. So because I love outdoor football. So I don't think there's anything that you could change about it. I liked how they made the changes to the concourse. It was bigger because I was there before the renovations where you had to wait. You missed half the second quarter because you couldn't go to the bathroom. You were in a line. You don't do that anymore. At least I don't think. The times that I've gone, you haven't had to do that because there were way more bathrooms.
Yeah.
Way more concessions. I don't think you have to change anything. I'll be quite frank. And again, this is from somebody who I've been there several times. I love it. I love Arrowhead. I've been to a lot of stadiums. And maybe it's because I don't go that often now. So maybe I don't know. You guys might be able to educate me on that, but I wouldn't change anything. I think the experience is great. I think the crowd is great. I think everybody screaming and yelling is great. I love it. And even when I went as a Steelers fan, I mean, nobody was getting in my face. You know, you hear those stories and stuff like that. Now, it might be because I'm a bigger guy, but I'm 48 years old. I'm not fighting anybody. I'm not doing anything like that. I just want to go and have a good time, eat food, and drink as much alcohol as I can possibly drink. So
there you go.
That's my thing. It was a good time, man. I enjoy Arrowhead. I know some people may not. I enjoy it. All of it.
I'm right there with you.
If you moved it, I don't necessarily like the location of it, but I don't care. It is where it is. It's fine.
Yeah, no, I agree. The parking lots around there too, like maybe football's not much of a downtown sport as much as like baseball is. Like baseball's a very downtown sport. I feel like moving a baseball stadium downtown makes sense. Like a football stadium downtown doesn't really make a ton of sense. Yeah, it is too big. But I do love what like the Bears have kind of stuck to their guns of doing that like lakefront stadium, and that looks like it's going to be pretty sweet. That's awesome. The Bills have also they're starting their new stadium, and I love that they didn't put a dome on it. Like that, again, to your point of just like you're in Buffalo, not putting a dome on it, incredible. Use the weather to your advantage. I love that, and I agree with you on the same point. Chiefs shouldn't. Like I know that like a part of it is like if you build a new stadium, you want it to host Super Bowls and concerts and all kinds of events. Super Bowl's probably not coming to a Midwestern city, right? Like I think Indianapolis was the last one they went to. I can't remember how many years ago. But like that's it. They don't even go to Dallas for the Super Bowl. Like that, like they don't, and that's a huge metropolitan area. The city of Kansas City probably isn't big enough infrastructure wise for a Super Bowl to hold it. So if you're already out in that regard, there's no need to put a dome on it. Taylor Swift still does concerts in Arrowhead now. There's not a dome on it. Like Kenny Chesney still goes to Arrowhead now. There's not a dome on it. Like you can do a lot of things. Don't put the roof on it. That's what I think. Or if it is, like, make it retractable, maybe. I mean, if like we can have that concession, I don't know. But I do love like letting the nature and the elements take over in a game. Like the snow game. Like I love watching like the snow game highlights of like Patrick Mahomes or just like any football game really. I think there was one in Buffalo. It was like maybe it was Colts Bills. They had like a foot of snow on the ground, and the game went to overtime. And it was like the most sluggish game of all time. I don't know why I remember this so vividly, and I think the Colts might have been wearing all white too, which was a part of it. Wow. Yeah, an incredible game. Might have been like pre-pandemic Colts Bills. Somebody look it up. Let me know in the Discord about that game because that's one of my favorite things. Which is like watching the elements just affect the game. I think it's incredible.
Yeah, I do too. I did. They should never put a dome on Arrowhead. First of all, it's part of your home field advantage, but it's just playing outside football. There's just something to that when in November and December. It's great.
All right, Big B, I think that's going to do it this week for 21 Questions. Appreciate you hanging out with me, answering the people's questions. Let them know where they can find you at.
I got a couple of places right now. First one is Steelers Almighty. It's a channel we started April 4th of this year. On YouTube, and if you like podcasts, it's also anywhere that you get your podcast and on social media platforms, and it's literally Steelers Almighty, so you can find us there. Also, I do one that we started, Big 12 Insiders, so if you like college football, you like the Big 12 Conference, come check us out. It's literally the Big 12 Insider. It's not even it's just Big 12 Insiders. come check us out. We're doing shows 5 days a week now, and just covering everything about the Big 12, all the new schools and everything. Right now, we're heavy into football.
Yeah.
We'll be heavy into basketball because the Big 12 no doubtably will be the best basketball conference in the country. So we're going to cover all that too. So it should be fun. I'm having a good time, man. I love this podcasting stuff. I'm glad that I started it, and it's starting to pay off a little bit.
Love to see it. And we'll have you on again too, as the Chiefs and Steelers playing on Christmas Day. So I'm sure we'll get you on again as for 21 questions or another podcast as we could talk some Chiefs and Steelers matchup. But I appreciate you hopping on this week's edition of 21 Questions. That's going to do it for this week's edition. For Big B, Brian Hanley, I'm Tucker Franklin. Thank you for listening to this week's edition of 21 Questions. We'll see you next time.